Dominique Smith, 22, was in court on Friday morning, June 6, 2014, for a bond revocation hearing. Smith was accused of violating the conditions of his bond due to a new marijuana charge, and Judge William Cole ordered him into custody. Smith was cuffed and placed in the jury box with 3 other detainees, where they waited to be taken to the Jefferson County Jail. At some point, the judge left the courtroom, leaving 2 bailiffs behind. One of the bailiffs eventually stepped out too, and Smith was able to sneak out while still handcuffed around 11:15 a.m. It's unclear how Smith was able to escape, but he also managed to get out of the cuffs. Deputies searched the nearby area, desperately trying to find him. Smith's own mother turned him in to Jefferson County authorities about an hour after the escape, according to a courthouse official. Smith and a second suspect, Jeffrey Howell, were accused of hitting and killing Amber Veras and Ryan Colwell, along with their infant daughter, Rogue Marie, on Birmingham Port Road in October 2012. Smith went on the run after the wreck and was eventually released the next day. He was charged with murder but released on bond until it was revoked. After his attempted courtroom escape, he was held without bond in connection with the murder charge, as well as on a third-degree escape charge, which is a felony. An inmate who escaped out of a second-floor window of the courthouse in Harlan County one Wednesday morning in 2018 was back in jail by the afternoon. His short-lived freedom remains lodged into the collective memory of Harlan County's people as one of the funniest and most bizarre courthouse escapes in the history of the county. The 39-year-old man, Brett Anglian, was supposedly scheduled to appear in court on a contempt charge when he suddenly got the idea to make a run for it. Scared to death of any possible sanction, he escaped out of the window of the second floor and was officially on the lam. His freedom was cut short, however, merely a few hours later. Police searched heavily for the man and finally found him in a residence in Coxton around 3 p.m. that same day. Anglian was immediately returned to the Harlan County Detention Center, urged to await his next sentence, additionally involving charges of escaping the courthouse. The 4th-floor courtroom inside the Broward County Courthouse, situated in Fort Lauderdale, was crowded with the victim's family and curious people when murder suspect Deontay Rezilis escaped from custody, surveillance video shows. Deontay Rezilis, 21 years old, broke free from his handcuffs and shackles during the July 15, 2016 courthouse escape and spent 5 days on the run before he was caught at a Days Inn in West Palm Beach. A surveillance video released after his courtroom escape by the Broward Sheriff's Office shows a group of jail inmates being escorted into the courtroom at 9:36 a.m. when the first sign of trouble occurs. Although the video doesn't show Rezilis making his getaway, it does show a deputy run across the room and out of the courtroom camera's view. The others in the courtroom turn toward the camera, looking in the direction of Rezilis' escape. A few seconds later, several people in the courtroom get out of their seats and walk out of the camera's view. Chaos ensuing. 8 people, Winston Russell Jr., LaQuay Stern, twins Cretran Barnes and Trevon Barnes, Francine Mesadou, Paige Jackson, Armoni Frankson Dennis, and Walter Hart have been arrested in connection with the escape. Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel said the twins sat in the courtroom while Russell and Stern waited in Stern's silver BMW on the north side of the courthouse. He said one of the twins coughed into his cell phone as Rezilis made his getaway, signaling to Stern and Russell that Rezilis was on his way to the car. Their plan was quite elaborate. Mesadou gave Rezilis a wig, eye color-changing contacts, and clothing in an effort to help him conceal his identity. Jackson spoke to Rezilis on the telephone at least 15 times between July 4th to 7th. Detectives believe she set up a series of 3-way calls in order to help Rezilis plan his escape. Frankson Dennis was accused of driving Rezilis to the Oakland Park flea market in the days after his escape. An arrest affidavit said telephone records showed that Frankson Dennis also communicated with Russell 6 times, 5 incoming calls and 1 outgoing text message, in the moments immediately after Rezilis' escape. Hart, who was an inmate in the county jail, was also accused of helping Rezilis get out of his shackles before his escape. Michael David Pierce had always been known for his impulsive nature, but on that fateful Monday in Darwin's Magistrates Court, his impulsiveness reached new heights, quite literally. On October 12, 2015, as the proceedings went on, Pierce sat in the dock, awaiting his sentence. He faced a variety of charges, but as the finale of his trial was approaching, he saw his chance for freedom. Pierce leaped from the dock and chose his only way of exiting the courtroom, through the ceiling. Ignoring the gasps of the courtroom, he scrambled upward, fueled by adrenaline. For a moment, it seemed as though Pierce might have succeeded. He clawed his way into the roof cavity, but a simple wrong step would prove costly. With a sickening crack, the ceiling gave way beneath his weight, and Pierce plummeted back to reality. The courtroom erupted into chaos as Pierce crashed to the floor. Miraculously uninjured, he found himself surrounded by startled onlookers and the steely gaze of law enforcement. The escape attempt had failed spectacularly, leaving Pierce with nothing but fresh charges and a bruised ego. After the attempted escape, facing charges of escape and property damage, Pierce found himself in an even deeper hole than before. A teen who escaped from a courtroom, apparently at his mother's urging, was sentenced to juvenile detention for up to 3 years back in December 2009. Franklin County Juvenile Court Magistrate William Kirby sent Shaquille Gardner, 17, to the Ohio Department of Youth Services for 1 delinquency conviction for escape and 2 for burglary. With the weight of his actions bearing down upon him, the 17-year-old stood before Magistrate William Kirby. Columbus police said Gardner was taken to court on December 22nd by his mother, Rebecca Gardner, for a hearing. Once she learned that he would be detained, police said, she whispered in his ear and he ran off while she blocked a courtroom door. As the details of the incident unfurled, it became clear that Shaquille's flight from the courtroom was not a solitary act of defiance, but rather his mother's influence. When the reality of Shaquille's impending detention sank in, Rebecca's maternal instincts kicked into overdrive. Despite his mother's urging, Shaquille ultimately surrendered himself to the authorities. As Shaquille was led away to begin his sentence, the courtroom fell silent. For both mother and son, the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. Rebecca Gardner, 40, later stood trial in March 2010 in Common Pleas Court on charges of escape and obstruction of official business after aiding her son and influencing his escape. A St. Paul man who tried to flee a Ramsey County courtroom over a 4-year prison sentence in July 2023 faced even more time behind bars for the escape attempt. Delmario Lavelle Smith, 21, was in court on Monday, July 10, 2023, when the incident happened. According to a criminal complaint, he became visibly upset when the judge handed down a 48-month sentence on a drive-by shooting charge. Approximately 10 seconds later, as deputies were preparing to escort Smith back to the holding cell, Smith went into a full sprint and bolted through the public gallery and towards the main public exit, the charges say. Mistaking a closet door for the exit, his escape was foiled, and 2 deputies went hands-on in an attempt to secure Smith, who resisted them and continued to fight deputies by comically kicking his legs, swinging his arms, and flailing his body around in an effort to resist being taken back into custody. Despite the assistance of additional deputies and threats to deploy a taser, Smith still refused to cooperate, and deputies had to carry him into a secured elevator to get him to the court security office in the basement of the courthouse, the charges say. Inside the elevator, deputies noticed the defendant was bleeding from a small laceration on his forehead. While they waited for medical assistance, Smith blurted out that you would do the same thing if you just got 48 months. Per the criminal complaint, he went on to say words to the effect of, I didn't even do anything wrong, just because I didn't want to do my 48 months. Who cares? He was soon after taken to Regions Hospital for treatment. The deputies involved suffered a number of minor injuries while subduing Smith, mostly abrasions and lacerations. Smith was charged with 1 count of attempted escape from custody and 3 counts of 4th-degree assault on a peace officer. He faced a further 8 years in prison and nearly $20,000 in fines.